Welcome to Homework 23, which is planes and axis of movement. This always comes up in your test, guaranteed to be on there. It's worth about 8 marks normally. And again, it's one of those things where it can be quite tricky to understand it and picture it, but we've simplified it down for you, and hopefully with this memory technique, it will help you remember the planes of axis, the planes of movement and the axis of rotation, and so that you'll be able to apply it properly within your tests. So just like levers, if you get a question on planes and axis, which you definitely will, the first thing you need to do and think to yourself is SFT, stupid flipping test. SFT, stupid flipping test. And then you're going to write down SFT down the side, stupid flipping test, and you're going to write down SFT. And then you're going to draw yourself 3 naughty stickmen. So 3 naughty stickmen like that. And they are naughty because we're going to put them into some sort of prison for being naughty. So sounds daft, but it'll help you remember it. Stupid flipping test, and then you're going to draw 3 naughty stickmen. And then for your first naughty stickman, what you're going to do is split him down the middle. So you're going to split him left and right. So you're going to draw a plane which splits him left and right. And then on the top of that plane, you're going to draw an arrow for where that plane of movement can go, which is forwards and backwards, flexion and extension. So stupid is a split your naughty stickman, put an arrow going forwards and backwards, which shows that you can only move forwards and backwards, flexion and extension. Okay, your second naughty stickman, stupid flipping F, we're going to put him in a frame. So you're going to split him front and back. So this frame goes right down the middle of his body and splits the stickman front and back. And again, just like before, you're going to draw an arrow along the top, which shows which way that naughty stickman can move. And he's now trapped in his frame and he can only move left and right. So in effect, he can only do movements of abduction and adduction. Remember, adduction, adding to the body, where the arm or the leg comes into the body. Abduction, going away, as in being abducted by aliens, being taken away from the body. So in the F, in the frame, he can only move left and right, doing abduction and adduction. And the last one, stupid flipping test, T, you're going to put him in a trap. So you're going to draw a square around the middle of him, and you're going to put him in a trap. And then with that, you're going to draw an arrow which goes around like this, which shows the movement which you can do in there, which is a rotating movement. So you can only spin around within that trap. So stupid flipping test, split him, frame him, trap him, and do your arrows which correspond to that movement. And then your S translates to here, which is sagittal. Your F translates to here, which is frontal, and your T translates to here, which is the transverse. So this person here only been able to do flexion and extension, forward and backwards movement, is the sagittal plane. You've only got the F, which is the frontal plane, which is left and right movements, as in abduction and adduction. And this movement here, the T, the trap, is the transverse plane, where they can only do rotating movements. And if you can remember this simple thing, S, F, T, draw your naughty stickman, split him, frame him, trap him, put your movements on there, suddenly you've got 4 or 5 marks which are available to you in your answers. Right. Now, you know what planes are. Planes are the movement which that person can do. So in the sagittal plane, they can only move forwards and backwards, flexion and extension. Now, an axis is always opposite to the plane. So the plane can only move forwards and backwards. So the opposite of that would be an axis which goes through the body like so, almost spearing them left and right. Now that axis is where that person would rotate around. So the axis is opposite the plane, so it's a sagittal plane, so it must be a frontal axis because it's opposite. With this plane here, it's a frontal plane, so you know it must be opposite. So if it's a frontal plane, it must be a sagittal axis. Okay, and then what we're going to do is draw our sagittal axis on, and we know sagittal splits them. So if I put an axis through the middle of them, which splits them, then that's what that person would rotate around. And it's a transverse plane. Now, this is the only tricky one because it's not opposite. It's a new word you need to remember, and it splits them right up the middle, and which is your vertical axis. vertical axis. So the plane and axis are opposite. Sagittals with the frontal, frontals with the sagittal, and transverses with the vertical. And now we've got those, we can think about the movement patterns that person can make. So if it's on the sagittal plane around the frontal axis, the only movement that person could make would be like a front somersault, a forward roll, or a back somersault. This person here is going to be moving sideways, but rotating around the sagittal axis, going through their belly button. We know it's abduction and adduction movements they can make. So the only movements they can make are sort of cartwheel type movements when they go left and right. And this transverse plane around the vertical axis, we know it must be a rotating movement. So the only movements they can make are a rotating movement, such as a 360 turn on the trampoline, or a half turn on the trampoline, or a 180 type spin movement where they're standing upright. Now, if you've got that information, stupid flipping test, sagittal, frontal, transverse plane, and you can split them, frame them, and trap them with all that information, you can then just simply fill in this table here on the first bit of your thing, on your bits. Sagittal, frontal, transverse, splits, frames, traps. What's the movements which are allowed within there? So you're thinking sagittal plane, so you can draw the arrow going along the top here, and the sagittal plane of movements which are allowed on there is flexion and extension. So you're going to fill these boxes in as you go down using the information on the back page. Once you've done that, these questions are really easy because you've already filled in your stupid flipping test part. So you should be able to do that front page if you can complete that back page with your stupid flipping test bits. Okay, and then on the slightly longer question, so from question 5 onwards, all it's asking you to do is to recognise the correct plane and axis for the sporting movement. So we've got questions on planes and axis. So the first thing you're going to do in this little gap here is you're going to write down stupid flipping test. You're going to draw your 3 naughty stick man. You're going to split, frame, and trap them. You're going to write down what the actual plane is. You're going to write down the opposite of the axis, and then you can work it all out. So they're doing a cartwheel, so they're going a sideways motion. So it must be the frame one with your arrow going along the top. And we know the frame is frontal, so it's a frontal plane. The axis has to be opposite, so it's the sagittal axis. And you're just going to work your way down these questions, trying to figure it out from the movements which you're going to draw in here. Stupid flipping test. So always, 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 questions on planes and axis, stupid flipping test, draw your stickmen, split them, frame them, trap them, and it will help you get this correct. Once you've done that, you can use the information which you've created here to fill in these boxes here, which is really easy once you've completed this table here and done that memory trick. Okay, your homework's due in next lesson. Thank you.